Appreciate your sound, needed renovation. Appreciate your sound, needed renovation. Sound needed renovation.
Music brings us together, even when we're apart. That's why we support Canadian musicians, festivals, and award shows. It's just one of the ways TD's Ready commitment helps build a more inclusive tomorrow.
We acknowledge that this gathering and the Halifax Pride Festival take place in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This treaty is covered by the Treaties of Peace and Friendship with Wabanaki peoples. Halifax Pride recognizes that reconciliation requires action in support of words. We commit to supporting to working within and supporting Indigenous communities, and we commit to identifying and uprooting systems of oppression that prevent Halifax Pride from offering the inclusive spaces we strive for. We are all treaty people.
Halifax Pride is dedicated to providing space that is accessible, inclusive, and free from oppression, harassment, and discrimination. In this space, we will treat each other with respect and dignity, regardless of age, race, gender expression, gender identity, sexual orientation, levels of ability, and all of our other diverse identities. Halifax Pride stands in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement to end police brutality and violence against Black communities across North America. African Nova Scotians and Black people have the right to live free from oppression, violence, and systemic marginalization. Halifax Pride recognizes our history and ongoing contribution to the marginalization of QT BIPOC. Since the beginning and to this day, the queer movement remains a protest against systems of oppression, including those that disenfranchise Black, Indigenous, and people of color. As such, Halifax Pride commits to, firstly, actively operating in a more anti-racist and anti-oppressive framework by prioritizing QT BIPOC voices and leadership in our spaces. Please visit our website to see some of our ongoing initiatives championing, supporting, and working with QT BIPOC. Secondly, Halifax Pride commits to holding ourselves accountable and allowing queer individuals to also hold us accountable for our shortcomings. We commit to engaging in discussion and following the leadership of traditionally marginalized and disenfranchised queer individuals. Throughout this year's festival, you may reach out to any one of the board members to provide comments or express any concerns that you may have. We have also set up an anonymous survey to provide feedback for all events. Please visit our website to fill in that survey. And lastly, Halifax Pride commits to supporting Black, Indigenous, and people of color and their leaders in actions calling on government and organizations to create meaningful change, such as adopting policies that begin to dismantle systems of oppression. This year, Halifax Pride has required that all corporations who wish to participate in Pride must sign an agreement to support QT BIPOC in several ways. The agreements have been published on our website and are available for the public to view.
Welcome everyone to the noon hour panel series, Black Lives Matter and Pride. First of all, welcome to the space. It's so beautiful to see all of your beautiful faces here. My name is Kate Macdonald. I'll be the moderator for the day. Say whatever you want, say whatever's on your mind, whatever's on your heart. We talked about safer spaces. I also want to talk about braver spaces. So y'all are inherently brave, but just encouraging and naming that I appreciate your bravery here today. I also want to say that there's a new moon in Cancer. So a new moon, I have a little something written about a new moon. It represents the start of a new lunar cycle and symbolizes new beginnings. People use the energy of the new moon to achieve their goals or start on a new project. So Cancer is related to home and family, and you may be prone to feeling very emotional. We're talking about learning to forgive and forget in order to avoid overthinking things. Try to channel perception, self-perception and otherwise, and try to create a certain distance without engaging in bitterness. Cancers are crabby. I can say that because I'm a Cancer. So I just wanted to welcome you all. Again, thank you for your time. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about Pride and how its roots are rooted in a protest being led by trans women of color to end police brutality against our community. Pride continues to be, or strives to be, a form of activism and protest today. This panel discusses Pride's responsibilities to stand in solidarity with BLM and Black communities and specific obligations that Canadian Prides must fulfill to uplift trans, queer, and other Black folks. So welcome, y'all.
Yes.
Yes, give yourselves a round of applause. Give yourselves a round of applause. There's a lot of Black magic in this room. So our first speaker is Michael Davies Cole. Hello, welcome. I'm just gonna let y'all know who Michael is. Black First Nations activist from Nova Scotia. Michael has been involved with and a board member of NSRAP, NSPIRG, Pride Health, Halifax Pride, and many more for over 20 years. Michael was one of, if not the first, trans person in Nova Scotia, having started transitioning while working in healthcare. Currently, they are doing work in the area of the Two-Spirit identity in an upcoming publication. So welcome, Michael.
Oh, thank you. So thank you for having me. Um, as Kate knows, it's sort of, I've got so many things going on in my head, and I wrote it all down just so I could kind of bring it out. Never wanting to be negative about this. I think that everything needs to start off with facts. And I think it's fantastic that Pride is now looking at how they can better engage with the Black community. I will use words interchangeable. I go by Black and First Nations. One of the things that I would like to remind people is that we do this weird thing every Pride time is we run around with this inclusivity and say, you're one of us, you're great. This is a queer community. But then when that's all over, people go back to their areas of life, their own things in their life. And one of those things may not always include those that are a color. And so you tend to go back into how you were. And you may see that person that's Black or First Nations or whatever, but predominantly Black, because we really do stand out, on the street. And you might walk by them. And you're not acknowledging because you're with your other friends. Now, I know some people are going to say, oh, that doesn't happen. That happens all the friggin' time. Yes, it does. And it happens within the queer community. We need to wake up and say that these things happen here as well. They do not just happen with heterosexual people. I will tell you that when I came out as transgender, one of the biggest things I faced in the queer community was my color, not anything. And I came out before transgender was a word. Nobody even knew what the heck I was. People just thought I was confused on both sides of the fence. So the problem that I had was nobody wanted me to be part of their group. Never mind about the transgender thing was like, oh, they could get their head around that. Who do you want to sleep with? That's about gender. But it was the color. There was no group. Now, the irony of that, when we want to celebrate Black trans women, is one of the very first fully transitioned Black females was a Black female in this country, was from Uniacke Square. She transitioned back before North America even had the surgery. She had to go abroad. But we erase in the queer community. We erase. I have so many times heard people talk about Halifax Pride, and they'll talk about now the awareness, and they'll talk about, anybody of color that's part of the board now. And they'll ask me if I understand. In fact, I've even got asked when I complain about how there's not enough representation of Blacks or any other color on the board. They'll say, well, you should get involved. People, I was part of Halifax Pride for over 15 years. I was chair, co-chair, and chief cook, bottle washer. But I've been erased, and I've been erased by our queer community. Because when you talk about the time I was on Pride, they can name nearly every white face that was on Pride but me. And we do that to our own. So now we're sitting here during Halifax Pride, and we're saying we want to be in support of the Black Lives Matter, and we're all for it. And I'm glad that conversation happening. But what I'm saying is when this month is over, this week is over, this moment is over, you cannot walk away and think you did your queer obligation because you spoke up for Black Lives Matter during Pride Week. I will be Black all of my life, and I will be queer all of my life. And if you want to support me, you need to support me all of my life, not when it is convenient for you, because that's what our problem is going on right now. Allies jump up, and I'm not saying there are great allies. But then there's a majority that show up for the protests and they show up for this. But when it gets heavy, they blend into the background because they can. We can't blend. They see us. Do you know how many protests I have not gone to? And Kate can attest to this because I said, I don't think I can physically get away if things go wrong. Mm-hmm. I judge my life by my color. And it's affected by that. So when you're being an ally and when you're talking about how we can deal with things and what can we do, I have seen many meetings in the past with Pride where they want to encourage our conversations and then later come back, well, we decided to go another way. Well, wait a minute. Black voices came and told you something. Native voices came and told you something. So when you're going the other way, you know that's colonization, do you? Because that's exactly what it is. You're telling us that all you have to do is pretend you listen to us, but you can walk away and do your own thing. That's a colonial mindset. And we need to come out of that mindset. And one of the things that when I stressed that I was Black is because I find that we're also erasing within the color dynamic. When we go, you know, people tell me, oh, but you're POC, you're a person of color. Like everybody's a friggin' person of color, including white people. You're pink, you're like red, you're whatever. If you're upset, you're angry, you know, everybody's a person of color. I am Black. When you include me in letters, whether it's queerness or colorness, all you do is make an umbrella, which allows you then to pick and choose what pieces of that umbrella you cover yourself with. So you don't have to, when you're talking about, I think they said quickly about a statement where Pride has, so you got your sponsors to sign that form. That's great. So that means that they can pick just about any nationality they want to and fill in that space. They don't have to pick Black people. That's what happens when you use an umbrella. You're not addressing the pinpoint issue. So they can turn around, and I mean, you know, you see in institutions all the time where they they'll go, oh, I just need to get one of them. And they pinpoint. Or they don't pinpoint, they just get a generalized. Or we'll get one that looks the closest away from them. I'm not sure how much time I have left here. But I think one of my big thing is that I've seen Pride come a long way from having a parade and an organization where in between 200 and 500 people showed up to the first time 5,000 people headed down to the waterfront. And so don't get me wrong, I love Pride because the day that happened, I was standing at the end of that street in Stifle Landing, and I cried. My first thought was, this is beautiful. My second thought was, where are we going to put them all? But I will tell you that I am getting tired of hearing we can do better, or you can do better, or you need to start acting, not talking. And I know it's, you know, irony is that we're here and we're talking on this and like, oh, we're doing a platform, but I want to see some action. The same people still pass me after Pride and don't speak to me. The same people still can't remember that I was a member with Pride when I was the one that helped bring Pride from 500 to 5,000. I was chair that year. That was me at the end of that street. I am about to lose my lights in here. Wait a minute, hang on. Hang on. There we go.
Sensor.
Automatic timer, sorry about that. Technical difficulty. That was Jesus telling me, calm down. Blow it. My grandfather just stepping into the room. So I want to say that if I am telling you after over 20 some years of being here and working at this, that I'm still having that happen and I'm still tired of it, we need to start looking at how far have we come and where have we come in those matters. What have we done? Yes, it's open in more circles and that, but we need to really look at this and we need to start making them step up for it. Yeah, sponsors, you want their money, great. But you know what? If you don't see them step up, don't take their money. Pride, you can live without some sponsorship money.
True.
You live without, hey, I turned down the casino. You can live without sponsors. You need to say what you want to do. And you need to say who you're supporting. Actions will always speak louder than words.
Okay.
That's my part.
Thank you. I've been lucky enough to have Michael Davies Cole in my corner for a long time. And I really do thank you for laying the foundation of the work that I continue to do today. Because if you didn't do what you have done and occupy the spaces that you've occupied, I definitely wouldn't be here in any capacity. So I just want to say that. So thank you. Also, I didn't mention that Misshapen is taking questions and comments within the chat. So I have a few here. No, we're okay so far. We're good so far. We're good so far. The first one is, Kate, did you go to Armbray? That's a private school. No. No, I didn't go there. I've been inside it. Yeah, I've been inside the school. I did not attend. I did a few workshops there, but no, I didn't played basketball against Arm Bright. Anyways, that's from Dave. All right. Someone else said, I think Aaron Antle, I'm hoping I'm saying their name right. I think that one of the weapons that has been used against us very effectively has been internalized homophobia and transphobia. Yeah, and all of those things. Also internalized racism, internalized misogyny, the list goes on, internalized colonialism. Yeah, I think that we've got a lot of like self-reflection in terms of undoing and unlearning the things that were shoved down our throats. And in regards to Pride, I remember going to my first Pride, I was probably like 16, and I also cried because I just didn't know there were that many gay people that existed. And but I didn't really see anybody that looked like me. Chris has always been someone also that has been very vocal, very forward, and making a lot of space for me as well. And like just telling me to like forget what everybody else thinks. So I am very thankful and recognize my like position in all of this. So I love y'all. Thanks, Michael.
You're welcome.
The next person that we have speaking is Ethan Addams.
Hi.
Ethan is a trans Black queer man and a drag king in the community. Recently organized a fundraiser for BLM and trans queer Black support that raised over $6,500. Yes, make it rain.
That's what I did.
He endeavors to involve alternative presentation as a norm in the drag and Black queer communities and strives hard for more Black trans representation in every space for performances, drag, or otherwise. Welcome, Ethan.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
And Michael, you said all of it, really. We should all just go home. 'Cause you said every perspective I wanted to touch on because, well, like you said, like it's not something that is trending. And I say this a lot. I say this in every digital drag show that I've been a part of. That's my perspective, like seeing representation in the drag community, because there's only like a handful of us out here that are out here active and performing. And I get a lot of emotional labor that I have to do to be as a spokesperson for every Black person who does drag or every Black person that gets on stage. And I'm a Gemini, so I like to talk. That's fine. It's just, you know, sometimes I get tired of saying the same things over and over because there is Google. You have a supercomputer in your pocket. So it'd be great if you could just hit that out before you come to me at the bar. I'm just trying to have my Jaeger Red Bull and move on. So like, speaking about me being tired, I do get tired of the fact that people all of a sudden want to pretend like this is new. I am really tired of the this is new mentality that I see online mostly and in like queer spaces. It'll even come down to like the little branches of like the jokes of running away from police. People like Chris Rock and all them been on the stage saying that for years because this is not new for us. This is protocol. It is learned at a like young age how to survive being Black in the world. And so like it's one of those defense things to survive, to also remember to laugh. And Black people laugh like no other people on earth. We laugh with our whole heart. That's why we're loud, you know, that's why we're boisterous. We start glowing when we laugh. And so we even take a lot of the pain that we internalize and we make jokes out of it, not to play, not to make it easier for white people's consumption, but to make it easier to survive socially in these retrospects. So I wanted to touch on the drag community. I wanted a couple of things with the drag community. One, I want to see all of us, just like I see all of the same types of queens that spearheading the queer community. There are people spearheading the Black and Indigenous queer community and the trans Black, queer, and Indigenous community. And we out here, we would love to work. We would love to be seen and literally make us tired by asking us all the time. What I don't want is to be told that it's my expectations only that make it a thing to be put on the stage. It's not my expectations only. It's just because representation is important. So it is the jobs of people who are creating these spaces, not for me to go, may I please have some space, please? Oh, I'm out here, may I please have some space? It is up to you to come to me like, I know you're out here in the community. I would love you to take up space if you have the spoons to do so. And that to me is way more important because A, that takes a lot of labor off of us. Even doing this is labor on us. But we're willing to do that to share our perspective for learning. And it seems like in a lot of the community, like Michael was saying, people like to pick and choose the umbrella of, you know, Black or POC people that they want to see up front and whatnot. And so you get the same kind of faces over and over and over and over and over, especially like, you know, there are people who are just great. They're phenomenal. Nobody's saying that there aren't. But as long as you're not filtering in all of us, then some of us get erased. The darker skin performers get erased, you know, like, and you think that that don't happen, but it does. You know, you could pick and choose because colorism is a part of the conversation of racism. So a lot of people will pick like people who look closer to the scale of whiteness or whatever and think, well, that person is a person of color, so we met our quota, that's it. And no, that's not the thing. You need to have all of the shades of melanin up there. We're here. There are people like Teo, people like Kate, people like me, people like Joe, who, if y'all don't know Joe, please find Joe. Joe's on Instagram. Please find Joe. Joe is amazing. And Joe was the person who started the supporting performers of color here. And it's been taken over. If you didn't see the show a couple nights ago, why? First off, why? And secondly, it's still posted. And thirdly, our tip information is also still posted. Please make it rain on the Black people. Okay. Wow. And that brings me to my next point of support. Sometimes I don't really need you to share a bunch of videos of the next Black person who gets assaulted in the street. I'm kind of tired of seeing it myself, not because I think it should be erased. So before you go, but won't anyone think of the exposure? We know. We know. What I want to see, though, is how you're uplifting these Black people, how you're supporting them. I want to see you do more than just donate to the nearest GoFundMe and say, well, I did my part. There are people in the community who are homeless. There are people in the community who are broke 90% of the time. There are people in the community who don't work or can't work or whatnot. And it's up to you to go, hey, what do you need? It is on an individual scale to not ignore us when we stop trending, you know? And just because you feel like, well, I did my part, you know, I shared the thing and I shared my political outrage, I'm glad. We're all glad. You should be mad. It would be weird if you weren't. But, you know, it's worse if you're not. You see how that's worse, right? So, like, I want the outrage. I want the political, you know, but I also want to see you open up the wallets. I'll put it to you that way, if I may be so brazen. To be like, I need you to open up the wallets. I need you to hand out some reparations. I need you to be there for it. And if you're thinking that you shouldn't, I need you to unpack why. Why the resistance to that? You know what I mean? Because you already know that there are wage gaps. You already know that there are opportunity gaps. You already see it. We talk about it. We're not silent about it. It is literally everywhere. If you open up your eyes and take a short look around, you will see it. And just because Black people have like in our blood to make the best out of everything, where it comes from like jobs, music, entertainment, hairstyles, makeup, beauty, all of it that is in our queer spaces and whatnot. Because, you know, we love our makeup, we love our costumings, we love the hair and all that other stuff. Don't touch it. But all of that stems down to survival. We literally make the best out of the worst situations. And that's because we're just strong people, but we had to. Like, it was either that or the alternative is a little bit bleaker if you think about it. So to excel is within us to do. But we're not alone in this. We're all in the same world. We're all on the same planet. But if you see somebody struggling, it's up to you to pick up that person and carry them with you. You have the strength. You have the time. You have the know-how. And if not, you can always ask. It is totally fine for you to open up your mouth, reach out, and actually put forth the effort like you'd like us to put forth the effort in telling you what isn't racist and what is and what isn't problematic. And we're so tired of, I'm gonna start sending y'all invoices. I'm not playing. Like, just immediately deposit $25. I will answer this question for you because I am done doing it now. But you're right. With an extra zero, she had already told me, you're right. $250
$250
per counseling session.
Per
You're right.
box.
You're right. I was selling myself short. Thank you, sister, for bringing me up. So take those things, unpack them seriously. Just the resistance, because I know a lot of people, when you talk about race, you say the word race, people have an internal cringe. They bunch up. You know what I'm saying? Unpack why you bunch up, why that's uncomfortable for you. Because I think that is something in you, your spirit in you going, oh, I'm going to have to look at my own problems. I'm going to have to look at my own behaviors. I'm going to have to look at how I socialize myself in these spaces. Like, you think gay, you think pride, you think of the white, cute, buff person in a mankini walking around with like balloon wings and whatnot. And that's great. It was cute. I personally love to see it. But there are other aspects of pride. Pride is political. It's not a party. The reason why we party is because we celebrate that you will not rub us out. There is no way that we're going to disappear. So we come out here, we be loud and proud, and we celebrate because of that. But you have to go back to the roots of why. You always have to go back to the roots to be able to strengthen all of our growth. And our roots is that it's political. People were being erased. People were not being seen as human beings. They were not being treated as human beings. They were sleeping on the streets of New York, and they weren't being helped. They were being murdered, and still are to this day by the hundreds. That's ridiculous. And then you have people like the trans mask people who are erased as well, misgendered immediately in their death. So they are, moved into out of the statistic of even trans and put into other boats that aren't something that people like me identify with. So that's my personal experience. I'm a trans, gay, Black, drag king.
Hey.
And I'm out here and I'm ready and I'm angry. Okay. I'm angry about not having to be comfortable for me already. It should already have been. This is not new. You're a bit late. If we're doing all of this now, y'all are real late. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like the work has to be done. I don't want to see just your quota filled. I want you to go that extra mile, if putting it that way is what it takes for more action to be done.
Absolutely.
So I want to see people in inboxes asking to be a part of these spaces. I want to see people, if you have a show, I want you to put all 5 of us in there. Just
You're
like you
right.
put all 6 of the other ones in there and all 10 of the other ones in there, put the same 5 of us in there, including Teo. I want to see poetry and drag shows too. Why not? You have a perspective, share it.
You're right.
Take up space. Kate, you too. You have a beautiful voice. You can
Thank
sing
you.
and all that. So I want to see all of us all the time, or else I'm never going to shut up. So that's how that
You don't have to. You don't
Thank
have
Just
you.
come back out of retirement.
to.
I
Yeah.
used to do drag, so I did it for years. I have to come back out of
See, it
retirement.
don't make no
Yes,
sense that we just met
please.
today. I would have loved, like, your perspective was so necessary. We had Spock shows that I would have loved to have you come and say
And
every.
Joe knows I did drag because I did Joe's. I came out of retirement to do one of Joe's shows.
What? Okay, well then the next one, we're gonna personally
You might not
seriously
believe
add me on
this.
Facebook, because I no way I don't have that type of power in my life.
Also,
I mean, us
Michael,
trans people, we gotta,
If you
we
give
gotta
me
stick together.
permission, I can share your number with Ethan.
Sure. Yep.
Cool. There we go.
Absolutely, because we're not gonna stop. So the next performance, you can do it right at home. We don't mind. We'll digitize you in
Yes.
for sure. There's space to be had. So that's my spiel for
Beautiful.
now.
Thank you.
And you can find me on Facebook for more of it, because I share it every day,
That's true.
all day.
Yeah, tip Ethan also. Tip Ethan.
Please do.
So you mentioned a few things like asking for space. I think we're pretty well versed in the fact that we actually created a lot of space and shows here for ourselves because we couldn't like break this quota that people kept trying to fill. We had our
we
Black
got
Beer Magic
sick
shows.
of having to ask and being met with resistance because it's so hard to put such talent in there when you don't want to break your friends out of your show to make the room. So yeah, you're right. That's why, Joe, that's why we have our own show. And to be honest with you, there was too many times where we looked out into the audience and where was all of our friends?
Where were all the people that say that they support us?
Where was that?
They were home. They were home.
was home.
That's the truth.
They were home.
They was back at
They
the
were
bar
home.
waiting for the next day
Yeah.
to come out to the bar. The next
So you
day.
have
For the next show. For the next
Exactly. And you have a bunch of Black angry people in the back on their phones, once again, doing extra labor.
Yeah.
Like, where are y'all?
Yeah, that was
You
actually
wanna
wild.
you wanna pour your love and support
remember
all
that?
over us.
Yeah, you remember
That
that.
was disrespect.
Disrespectful.
That was disrespect. We was all there,
Disrespectful.
but bitches, we was all there on time. First of all,
Exactly.
I just want to
And
acknowledge
that
the
was
fact
hard.
we was all there on time even earlier, and these bitches was not there.
So we had to start our show later because
Yes.
we were waiting for audience members. And if you know anything about the drag scene, we do not make money if you do not show up.
Yeah.
There is no set booking thing. We do not make
Yeah.
money if you don't show up and raise those tips to the gods. Okay?
And you also mentioned being uncomfortable, which is really funny. Like Black people don't have shit to confront, you know,
Right.
like about themselves. Like we don't
Right.
have lots of
You have to
internalized
work
things
through it.
either. So
and
it's like,
we had to internalize them to survive it because
the
you got to
thing-
speak the language.
which is why
you know what I'm
sometimes,
saying?
you know, there is no sympathy
None.
for white people having to do that work.
I have no empathy. Look, I'm sorry.
You
I
don't
have
gotta.
no space to
You
give you
don't.
this coddling space.
I'm not
I
gonna
have
coddle,
literally
no.
lived all 23 lives and seen this shit. I've seen it from the gay side, the Black side. You ain't finna tell me I need time because you had time, sis.
You
Some
had
of you are
time.
older than me and you had time. Your
And
time.
it's not like we ain't like out here on social media with like whole like thesis
Like-
worth of information.
I
you know what
have
mean?
written an MLA format essay on the specific things I'm saying
I have
now.
some questions, y'all. So a statement from Dorico Simons. Hey, Rico. Is some people take this as entertainment and tune in when it's trending and not the real life that y'all are talking about. It's
Thank you.
real. The real you live every day. Grateful to learn and listen and support and take action.
Thank you, because
Yeah.
honestly, people really do take it like it's a trend.
They
It's
do. They
not.
think it's cute.
It's not. It's
They
not
think
cute.
it's
It's not
cute.
funny. This is my life, and if you can't listen, what's the point of you talking about
Like
Black Lives
Michael
Matter? You ain't
said,
opening
we
up
black
nothing.
all year. We're
All the
black when it's
time, guys.
done trending. We're black in
24/7.
in August and the rest of the year.
Outside February.
Outside February,
Rico,
outside June.
Rico also has a question for anybody. Do you think the support of government, businesses, and organizations is genuine or often out of strategy to hop on the wave and boost their own profile? As I mentioned, I often see money with little to no action, policy, or change.
One, I would love to see some more money.
Yeah.
I would like to
Where
see
was
some money
that?
in my pocket.
What are you
maybe,
talking about, right? Because
personally.
like I'm still waiting on reparations
You're
from generations ago, so I'm
Mhm.
still waiting for that. But yeah, it is totally a trend for even like establishments and institutions to support when it's necessary, just like other people will ignore and support anti-gay factions all year round. But whenever they want you to buy their rainbow-coated bottle of vodka, then they're all about the gays. So like that happens with Black people too, but it's also only whenever it's trending, because the other year round, you're not going to hear, you know, Sephora did this for the Black folks or anything
but we
like
got
that.
1 month.
I don't know.
But you know what's crazy? It's like the trends are actually hashtags of people that died. Like that's what's crazy. That's
Yeah,
what we're talking
literally.
about. Like, the trend is that people are
Hashtag
dying.
Breonna
That's
Taylor,
the trend.
hashtag
Yeah,
George
and
Floyd, hashtag
that's
Elijah.
sick. You
Yeah,
know, it's very
twisted.
dark because there are plenty of people out here
That
who
are-
like Black excellence is also a hashtag that you won't see as much.
Absolutely.
And there are people like even in Africa who are scientifically genius and they are like cornerstoning things in the machine and medical field to help people who have been just completely ignored by governments and like first world nations and whatnot. And so like we're not sharing enough of them. So I'll take it upon myself for a straight hour to find some videos and just be like, oh, Black hair, Black excellence, Black
Okay.
hair, Black excellence all day. I'll blow up your
Exactly.
timeline.
You're
And
right.
more people need to do that because people think that our lives are just tragedy. And whereas there is a hard
Or that we're
tragedy in
victim.
having to survive just sitting around with skin on and whatnot, there is also a great joy and a great happiness because we're all brilliant, smart, artistic, talented,
Cultured.
cultured people. So
Absolutely.
that should be celebrated.
You right. I'm going to introduce our next panelist, Teo Furgeson.
Come
is
through, Teo.
Mateo. Oh, we got the government.
We got
Are
the
you going by
government.
Mateo?
We got
Are
you
going
guys
by
get.
Mateo now?
I mean, either one. Bounce
Okay.
between the two. Mateo.
On Instagram,
Not
it's
Mateo.
Mateo.
Not I don't know how people get that confused, but Mateo. M-A pronunciation T-A-Y, and then the Mateo. Okay, just wanted to clear that because a lot
Mateo
of-
is a 23-year-old advocate and artist and soon to be finishing his social services program at NSCC in 2021.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah, Black excellence.
So I was listening. I wanted to touch on a couple of things, and mostly, definitely something that Michael said along the way about like the fact that in the queer community, especially, it's like we want to talk about this inclusivity. We want to talk about bringing people in and whatnot when Pride is around, but every other day you don't know how to. And I speak on this highly, and I speak about this every time. And I'm gonna use what I learned my gay culture through, which was Grindr, because living as a young gay Jamaican in a Jamaican household and knowing how the culture is surrounding that, I did not feel safe. I did not feel comfortable up until I was literally 13 and I made a choice to myself. I said, I'm gonna either choose the way I was the way I was told and traditionalized to live, or I'm gonna choose me.
Yeah.
And I chose me.
Absolutely.
And ever since I chose me, I got to speak about me, be unapologetically me in both my gay and Black identity. And it's so unfortunate that I still see to this day that these men will actively avoid Black or they'll actively fetishize Black. It's one of the two. You either actively avoid or you actively fetishize. I've met some very nice people on the in-between that actually see me and respect me. But for the most part, as Michael said, after these 365, after this 1 month goes by, they all forget about it. They don't know how to include it in their regular lives or social circles. And I'm sitting here struggling to bring awareness to that. And these people sitting there constantly asking me, are you high? Are you on drugs? Are you this? Actually, no, I'm aware. I'm a part of this. I'm a part of this reality. I can see what's going on. I try to talk to you, and I use this example so many times with many people on Grindr, which is why they probably get pissed off at me. Right. See, I live in this small ass city. We live in this small ass city. And I'm not just looking out to look out and want to nitpick at people. I'm aware of the world around me. When I travel the bus, I'm looking outside, I see people, I watch the world around me. So when I see someone say, I'm too busy, but then the next day out with this other lighter tone person or whatnot, after I've asked the same kind of socialization, asked for the same kind of socializing behavior, it's like, to me, it draws a question. And I don't want anyone younger than me to feel how I used to feel when I was there.
Listen, who you preaching to? I've been in these streets.
I don't want them to feel that. I want them to be like, hey, I was able to meet this person and there was no weird things about it. I didn't have to feel like it was because of my Blackness or because I was maybe slightly too femme or whatever the fuck. I don't want these younger generations to feel like this. And I'm sick and tired of these older generations when it comes to, mostly when I'm speaking to them, when it comes to me speaking to older white men about this, I'm sick and tired of them trying to be complacent with their behavior. It drives me insane because I was unfortunately exposed to it young. So you're not going to tell me. I was on Grindr when I was 13, unfortunately, because I didn't trust being safe around my family in that sense. But years later, after finally coming out, you know what I mean? You do what you got to do. You do what you got to do. Years later, my family is the most loving. They've accepted me now. They understand that this is me and that's not going to change, period, but they can still love me. And that's all I can ever ask for.
Absolutely.
So to see that, these men don't understand this and they like to just pick and choose which umbrella they want to have inside of their shit.
Right.
It bothers me because it's like you want to act like you're inclusive, but it's not really inclusive.
Right.
You're only inclusive up to a T. You're only inclusive up to a part.
Which is actually just silencing, right?
That's literally just silencing.
If you're only including up until a certain point, are you actually including me at all?
And literally, when you try to tell them that, it's nothing but anger. It's nothing but anger. And they want to say that you're angry. No, sis. I pointed out something that's fundamental and real, and you got upset because I pointed it out. I apologize for you.
And what's wrong with being
There's nothing wrong with being angry. Black people have had to deal with anger from jump since the day we was born, within our households, outside of our households. Everywhere we go, we've had to deal with someone's anger that was not our own to deal with.
Have to second guess it all the time.
Period. So it's like
especially here, Halifax has such a and Nova Scotia has such a fucked up history, and such a long history that it is unbeknownst to me that people think that we don't have any space to be angry. You know what I mean? I'm channeling 500 years deep anger. That's how mad I am.
It is inherent anger, and people don't want to give places or spaces. You think just because we put a bass in our tone or a little passion behind it, all of a sudden you want to cage me because I'm being too confrontational.
And this is what
you should accept it. Yeah, especially Black women, not allowed to show any sort of emotions. Have to.
Policed by other Black people.
And the thing is,
Black people can end up attempting to want to silence you because your rage is too much.
And it's fear. It's for being.
I don't know what. It could be a few things.
I don't get why it is, because the thing is, if we're gonna have these race conversations, we have to open our ears. A lot of people are opening their pockets and all opening their mouths, and that's really great. But I need you to open your ears to the Black voices in the room. Stop stop right now with this when we're having these race conversations, especially if you're a white person, uplifting your voice or uplifting your debate or uplifting your argument. It is not about an argument, debate, or conversation. You're here to listen. Because I'm experiencing this. You have no idea what I've experienced. And the only reason, and the thing is, I feel like, especially when it comes to me, I deal with myself, and I deal with myself in the best way I know how to, and I carry myself very well. And people seem to think that, oh, I don't think my shit don't stink. Of course I know my shit stinks. The fuck you think this is?
What the fuck?
My
I'm
shit
all kinds
stinks
fucked up.
profusely. Thank you very much.
They
And I
used to
know it
call
does.
us uppity. That was,
You know
that
what I
was the
mean?
word in the States.
Right.
But now I'm working,
And
I
that's
worked on my
perfect.
shit to know that I got me. You should be working on you to know that you got you, because otherwise what I'm saying would not bother you.
Are you intimidating, or
You're
are they
right.
intimidated?
Okay. Also,
This-
Also, like, yeah, people assume that sometimes when you open your mouth that you're perfect at this shit. This shit is so messy. This
No,
shit
it's
is
not.
so messy,
I'm not
man.
perfect.
This shit is so messy, and like, I like by no means just because I occupy these spaces do I claim that I know what the fuck I'm even doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, to be really-
No, for
to be
real.
really-
No,
figuring it out as
absolutely.
we
to be
go.
really truthful, I got all kinds of
Absolutely.
shit. I'm not sitting here because I can say these words and translate this and that I'm best at this.
Exactly.
No.
All I know is that I was raised here for 3 decades, and that's basically.
And you're
it.
And this
we're
is
all
it.
speaking from the heart.
That's it. That's
You
all I can
know,
do.
the
So this is
eloquence
what it
comes
means. This is what I
because it is
mean. Like,
experience.
this is what I mean when I talk about these gay men. You have to include more than just what you're accustomed to into your life. I'm sorry if you can't deal with anger, but that's a part of who I've learned. This is how I've been socialized with all the shit that I've had to deal with. And I'm sorry that you cannot deal with that. And I'm sorry that you have friends, family that you are more tolerated, or that you can tolerate a little bit more, but I'm not here to be tolerated.
Right.
I'm not here to be tolerated. I'm not letting you sit there and say that you're going to tolerate me. You will respect me. Dominique Jackson said it best. The lead star from Pose, Electra from Pose, she said it best. You will respect me. There is no tolerate anymore.
Right.
400 years, you've tolerated us, and then 50 years plus after that, you guys have tolerated us, and this is what toleration has brought us to.
Right.
This is what toleration
We're done
has
with
brought us to.
tolerate.
You will respect my identity when I walk through the room, period.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oftentimes we see in community that we mimic these structures of these powers, structures of powers and systems of power, because we feel like it'll get us closer to something. If you position yourself closer to whiteness, then it's going to save you in some way. That's a fucking
Hell no, that's a falsity.
That's a fallacy.
That is
and
a
it's
fallacy in your
damaging
damn
fallacy
mind.
too.
Absolutely.
Because then you have to in some way comply a little bit with your own anti-blackness or internalized racism and whatnot. Like, why is that the goal? Why is whiteness the goal? Like, that's not a standard.
This
of
is what I'm
beauty.
saying.
It's not. That's it.
There's all different kinds of beauty in the world, and that's why I'm just like,
Exactly.
these men that either fetishize or dismiss these Black lives are dismissing so much more than what they really notice. They're really only noticing the body. They don't notice the brain. And that's unfortunate. That's what drives me. I want to see more white folks and more white men, especially in my perspective, in my understanding, in the way I've lived. I want to see them include people and not just think that it's because, especially when it comes on Grindr, a lot of people just like to think it's sexual. No, bitch, it's like a Facebook. It's like an Instagram. The only problem is your brain on it thinking that you just gonna get brain. So literally socialize. Be able to be socialized with it, because that's what I'm trying to do. I've literally learned. I'm lucky in the aspect that I get to say that I started at 13 and lived through Grindr till now, because now I got to see the transition for myself, and myself going from it's just this sexual thing to actually I can use this to meet people, connect with folk, not just connect on a sexual level, but connect in more of a community aspect, in a more of like, you know what, I see you, I respect you, I want to know you, not just I want to know
Trans
you.
Black man too on Grindr.
This is it. You have all the identities on this app.
They wasn't going for it. But
They have all these identities on the app to get to know. There is no tolerating anymore. There is
Right.
respect.
And my
Period.
like pretty self in like the gay Black spaces and whatnot, and be like, oh, listening to all the Grindr stories, and I was like, oh, honey, I can't even go on there. You know, I might vanish. I don't know. It wasn't even safe. There was no, like, now, you know, with more socializing like Black and trans people, it has been a sort of shift that like we have forced to be
Literally
respected
had
and
to
forced
force.
to push in there, and now with people, half of them fetishizing, the other half wanting to try us out, like I made new Coca-Cola.
And what
or
drives me
something.
crazy, it drives me crazy because these gay white men forget.
They don't.
Black trans people been running your shit for years and helping you get what you
ain't
get.
new.
So
How
what
the hell did we get Pride?
But you know
How
what
the
it
hell did
is?
we get Pride?
But it's
Come
not
again.
it's
Come
not
again.
just it's not just the heterosexual people and even gay, white, or whatever, because like when I first came out, I got kicked out of every dance. I couldn't go to the men's dance, I couldn't go to the women's dance.
What? Why?
Because
Nova
the
Scotia.
women said you want to be a guy, and the guys were like, you don't come with the right parts.
Oh yeah. Oh,
So that was the whole idea. But you know what it broke down to? Because when a white person that happened to them, they made allowances.
Right.
At first they didn't, but then like now we can make it allowances. When it was just me, there was no allowances.
Right.
So I'm like, Teo, I'm going to tell you, you be unapologetic. That's my new thing. So my mouth started going back then, and I was saying, here's the thing. The only difference between that person and me, whatever way you want to look at where the gender thing is going, is their skin color. So now that white has an issue with it, we're
Right.
going to work on it.
Now we're going to normalize it.
Now we're going to let people in the door.
Right.
So yeah, no.
And
Say
you know
it.
what?
Unapologetic.
Say it. These people are let it be known, especially because I said this earlier. You will not be dictating to anyone who is of queer, trans, gay, non-binary. You will not be dictating to any one of them about their life because you guys have just showed up to the conversation.
Okay.
You've just showed up.
I want to introduce our last panelist
Yes.
so that we make sure that you have time to say all the things you want to say. But I'm thankful for the conversation. I'm very grateful for the conversation. We also have some comments from Rebecca Rose. Michael, I would love to see you perform again. And Aaron Antle, listening means truly allowing space for all emotions and experiences in the conversation. So our final panelist that I will introduce is OmiSoore Dryden. OmiSoore H. Dryden lives and works in Jabuktuk, Halifax, the site of the oldest Black communities in Canada and current home of African Nova Scotians. OmiSoore is a Black queer femme whose scholarship focuses on the lives of Black people and addresses the health inequities we continue to fight against. Dr. OmiSoore Dryden is the James R. Johnston Chair in Black Canadian Studies, Faculty of Medicine and Associate Professor, Community Health and Epidemiology at Dalhousie University. Dr. Dryden is an Associate Scientist with the Maritime Spore Support Unite, MSSU, and a current member of the International Black Feminist Health Science Studies Collective based at Northeastern.
So that's really long, right?
Huh?
Yeah.
No, I like this.
Well, say it all. You earned it all.
No,
Wait, I'm almost done.
Okay, because
Yeah.
it feels like it's
No,
we're good.
I'm living.
I'm still
Go
going.
through.
Wait, there's like this much left. There's like that much. Dryden is an interdisciplinary scholar who examines the symbolics of blood and the social life of blood donation while engaging with Black, queer, diasporic analytics and health and medical humanities. Dr. Dryden is a principal investigator on #GotBloodToGive, #DuSang a research project which seeks to identify the barriers African, Black, gay, bisexual, and trans men encounter with donating blood, and also analyzes how anti-Black racism, colonialism, and sexual exceptionalism shapes the blood system in Canada.
goodness gracious.
Blessings. Bless up. No.
Excellent.
That was wild. So I want to say thanks for including me. Ethan, I don't understand why we haven't met before.
I don't know.
Michael,
I don't know.
where you been, boo?
And I'm sitting at Dell right now.
What? How
I've
is
been
this
Dell for
happening?
7 years. I'm sitting here.
What is happening? Teo, I see you.
Ain't
I
enough
see
space.
you.
Right.
I see you. Like,
So good. So I currently work, as it was said, in Jabuktuk, the traditional and ceded territory of the Maliseet, and whose ancestors, along with the Mi'kmaq and Passamaquoddy Nation, signed the peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s. So why do I always say this? I say this because when the treaties were signed, that was 140 years before the end of slavery. So when we say that we're all treaty people, we need to really think about it, because from what I've seen in the research I've just done to date, nowhere in the treaties have Black people been referenced, or has there been an accounting for enslaved Africans in the treaties, unless enslaved Africans are included in part of the business trade negotiations. And so we need to think of that. We need to understand that we need to understand where Black people are and are situated in these traditional territories and through treaties. And I think we need to be really cautious about continuing to say that we are treaty people if Black people aren't specifically spoken about in treaties, right?
Right, you're right.
And then I also want to say that we know that Halifax was imposed on Jabuktuk in 1749, and enslaved African people were used to dig out the roads and build the city, including much of the citadel. And on the southern shores of the Bedford Basin, Mi'kmaq folks shared land with Black people, and this is what allowed Africville to be founded in the mid-1800s. Let's disabuse ourselves of the fact that Africville was bought land from white people to create this space when in fact the negotiations began with Mi'kma'ki and then moved from there. So we really need to be clear about these specificities.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt you at all, but Mi'kmaq folks and African Nova Scotian folks, like, we helped each other survive, you know? Like, we settled on land that was like not traditionally able to be toiled and farmed upon. And we definitely like shared knowledge in that way and language in that way to make those things happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, and the other piece I want to say is, just like colonialism has not removed indigeneity from Indigenous communities here, neither has slavery removed indigeneity from Black people. And so we still hold and are seated in our own indigeneity, whether that be from, you know, Igbo or Yoruba people in Nigeria, what's now known as Nigeria, or the Akan in Ghana, and the indigenous communities in what is now known as Jamaica, Trinidad, and Barbados, right? So we did not lose our indigeneity simply because of, not simply, but through the terror of slavery. And the other piece I want to say is, you know, I appreciated all of the conversations that are happening here today. My concern, I think, is with the ways in which respectability continues to inform how we move in the world, and this desire to try and have white recognition. And respectability and white recognition often go hand in hand. And so, you know, for many years, probably over a decade, I've kind of been over Pride. I've been over the corporatization of Pride. I've been over the pinkwashing of Pride. And what we see now, and this is, you know, we're doing all of these reading lists for white people to help them get woke. Hat tip, that will never happen. When in fact we should be doing the readings for ourselves, and we should be really cautious about this kind of anti-reading or anti-intellectualism that often gets thrown out as if you're really an abolitionist or you're really an activist, then we don't need to do reading. Reading is only for academics or only for theorists. And we need to disabuse ourselves of that notion for folks who carry that, because we need to remember there was a time when it was illegal for Black people to read. And so reading is actually an activist space. And so my question is, are we doing our own readings? And if we are doing our own readings, then we would understand that, you know, systems like Pride, and Pride is a system like the Canadian government, like Dalhousie, like any other, entity that works within this particular structure. Systems like that will only ask us to be included up until, as long as it furthers their colonial agenda. And so it's good, so this is why we should not be asking for more people who look like us to be on a board when the board is only going to continue to do the work it did in the past into the future. That is not liberation. Liberation is saying, you know what, thanks so much. Y'all can keep your money. We don't need money to do Pride. We don't need money to do this work. We can actually do this work for ourselves without asking for the permission of or asking for the acknowledgement of any of the corporations. So, it's Pride. We're speaking about Pride. Any of the corporations, right? So whether it's a university, whether it's the government, whether it's a hospital, there's ways in which that we can operate without having to rely on their permission or rely on their recognition. And I think if we were truly committed to our liberation, then we wouldn't be spending this time. So, this film, Our Dance of Revolution, which is really set in Toronto, looking at Black, queer, and trans people and the history of activism in Toronto from the 70s, 80s, and 90s to today. What that film tells us, or what information it gives us, is that Black queer people have been doing this kind of activist liberation work from time. They've been doing it from time. Exactly. And so the other piece we need to remember is the transatlantic slave trade was centuries long. So this idea that somehow we can disrupt and dismantle racism, anti-Black racism, and within anti-Black racism, that is homophobia, understand that the way we understand sexualities and identities today comes out of the work of scientific racism that perpetuated that there was such a thing as race. Human sexologists look to that research in scientific racism and use that to create the homosexual and the heterosexual and what was normal. So if you're talking about homophobia, you really are talking about anti-Black racism.
Yeah.
So we cannot think that only in one generation would there be a disruption of anti-Black racism, nor should we think that there hasn't been activist, liberationist, revolutionary work that's happened with Black, queer, and trans and gender nonconforming radicals from the late 1800s, the 1900s into the 2000s. And so this belief that somehow the fault lies with Black people not doing enough misconstrues the depths with which we are still fighting white supremacy. And then the other piece that I think is really important for us, if we truly believe that Black Lives Matter, then we understand that Black, queer, and trans people have always been at the center of that work. Then we should also then be putting our energy in, I think, in understanding who we are without comparison to whiteness. So who are we? And without beginning with, well, we were enslaved. You're right, we were, but that is not the beginning of our story.
No, not by
And
far.
so if we understood that, then maybe next year when Pride says, oh, we should have another meeting on, or another panel on like Blackness and homophobia, or Blackness and intersectionality, or Blackness, whatever, maybe then the focus will be like, you know what, that's great. I don't want to do that. I want to do something that's more, that speaks more to my own communities. Maybe that's where we could put that work. And so I was asked the other day, what do you think, Pride should do? And I was like, I think everyone who's part of the executive should like vacate their positions, return all the donation money, and then like all the corporate money, and kind of really just, leave the space and open it up to Black and Indigenous people and be like, how do you want to do this? And then show up as, if they claim to be allies, show up as allies ready to do the work, right? The other, so I know we're getting to
No, it's okay. We have time. It's okay.
I just wanted to say that I think if we centered the voices of Black and queer folks who are often rarely ever thought of as respectable or ever rarely listened to, then our movements and this work would continue to be led by sex workers, drug users, and folks who are street involved, and folks who are like poly or triples or whatever, like the kinds of who are into kink, who are into whatever, like the kinds of things that are not understood to be respectable. These would be the folks who would be leading the work. And these would be the folks who'd be like, okay, how do we create a community and community relationships that are outside of and not in relation to continuing systems of whiteness. So let's be really clear, this kind of labor can never get paid enough, right? This kind of labor can never get paid enough. I don't, I teach because it is the job, the capitalist job I have, because I'm not independently wealthy. I need to be able to pay for a place to live. I need to be able to buy some food, and I need to be able to support many members of my community. That is how I launder that dirty money and put it towards something that is good.
Absolutely.
Right? But we can, within this practice, I had another idea come slamming into my head. So rude.
So intrusive.
Right? So rude. We don't need to, anytime we seek to be included, anytime we think that the sites of power really are the Prime Minister, the ED of Pride, the president of university, the chief of police, like the head of the, hospital association, whenever we think that they're actually the seats of power and that somehow we need to get their approval or their recognition or their consent, then we are continuing to do the work of enslavement.
Yeah.
When we realize that we should be actually looking to one another, right? And saying, how do we build community in a way that keeps us, that is self-sustaining, right? That is the work. And that is why you will see police coming in to disrupt us,
Absolutely.
right? At that very moment. That's why Move Africa was bombed. That's why there were COINTELPRO in the Black Panthers. That's why, right? All of these things. That's why there's always somebody telling on your business. That's why there's always someone being like, no, we shouldn't do that. And try,
You're
am I
so
telling,
right.
am I telling a lie here?
No,
No,
you're
no,
like,
no. You understand what I'm saying?
I literally had
that's
posted
why we're
about
all
Tulsa
silent.
and
We were just
Tuskegee
blown
the other
away
day.
by like, you're so right, truth to power. Like,
And
needs to
listen,
come
I
back
agree
to
with
roots.
I agree with Kate, right? Like I'm not like trying to say that this is the definitive word or I know the definitive action or I know the
Absolutely.
definitive way
No,
forward.
that's a
I have
valid thing.
fucked this up in the past. I'll fuck it up in the present and I'll fuck it up in the future.
You're right.
But at the same time,
Yes.
my commitment will always be to me and us and our people, right? Like
Yes.
that is my
Period.
commitment.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so I think what I want to say in how we move forward. Well, I don't know where we move forward. Well, I think I already said where I think we should move forward.
Yeah.
But what I want to know is, you know, what will we do next? I know someone trying to come in because it's time, but what will we do next? What will, like, how will that
I personally
flourish?
want more like a family sense in people who may not even be blood related. I want to keep that, and that might go back to like my like pushing away from even like more Christian sensibilities and getting back into like my spiritual roots that are from more African, West African and whatnot, and like learning more things about like even hoodoo and whatnot, and getting back into like the medicines and the traditional things that we used to do. And at the forefront of that was honor your ancestors. Remember that we're family. Remember that we all have each other's backs. And that pretty much led me to break down.
Somebody needs to answer the door.
I know that's driving me crazy.
So
That
if
is-
y'all hear it's knocking, somebody
that-
get up and go answer it.
That is leading me to break
Kate's
generational
face.
curses that are in
They were just sitting there.
all right,
Yeah.
that are in our lives and in my
I didn't
family.
mean us.
and
We should
whatnot.
stay here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not getting that. So I was just like, what I was saying was that it led me to pretty much look back to my history and look back to my roots and beyond slavery, because that's not where things began as somebody who was like from like North America and whatnot. And so, it brought me back to like finding out, I wish I would know. And if I don't like send my DNA out to get tested, I won't know where things are even coming from or anything like that. I have to look at my features. I have to look at my family. I have to look at the things that the old folks used to say, you know, with medicine and whatnot, and bring it back to the present.
Back
And
to the people.
I've been doing that
Yes, you
because I decided to look beyond the colonization language when talking about Black people, Black religion, Black magic, and stuff like that. So personally with me, I'm not Christian. I will say that. My ancestors are. And the ones even before that were not. So like I brought all of those factors back into my home to like communicate with my dead grandmother, to better communicate with my mother, and we're best friends now, more so than we ever had been.
That's beautiful.
You know, and yeah, and like
Congratulations.
it was so moving that all I had to do was remember the ties that bind.
Absolutely.
I just had to remember and then act on it. So
Absolutely.
whenever you said that, that brought all of that back to me, because a
See.
lot of us are so disconnected,
You're right.
and we have been disconnected from a community sense within ourselves. We disrupt our own selves because we're trying to make sense of like making sense and surviving in colonized
another world.
spaces already, that we don't even have the vocabulary
I
to
just
speak.
I just want to say something about, you mentioned reading and how that's activism, as is
Yes.
lots of other shit, like, you know, living, singing, dancing, it's all activism.
You're right.
But I also just want to focus on the storytelling, because man, we don't have that literacy rate. We don't. That's fact. You know what I mean? Like the
Truly.
kids here, especially, like so many kids in community come to me and we like talk about these things that they saw on TikTok or whatever. And there's literature that supports that. There's readings that support that, but they're not going to find that. That's not where they're going to crack open these theories, even though they're exploring them already, because we push these kids so quickly through this system, and it happens everywhere. But I know here, because I've been in this one, I was in it, and then I went back and worked in it, and I'm still working in it. So I think that, I would love if I could give books.
You know, the Black Panthers did this back in the day, right? Like they
Yeah.
had breakfast programs,
Yeah.
and they did, right? Part of that was tutoring, but was also teaching in various mediums,
Yeah.
right? And so the Freedom School in Toronto, and I know there's a Freedom School starting in here in August, but would pair TikTok with readings. And so there's ways, as you said, we're creative people.
Yeah.
And so there's ways to get that out, right? There was a friend of mine who would just tweet whole chapters of books onto Twitter as a thread, because people would read that thread. They would read the tweet as opposed to picking up the book. So there's ways in which that we can do this.
I
Yes.
just wanted to
I'm
I think one of the things for moving forward with me, and something that I keep in my heart, is the fact that I grew up in the square.
Sorry?
I grew up in the square.
Yeah.
Like, I was born and raised in the square, Uniac Square, literally in those little cubicles with my family. My aunt and my two aunts were across the street. Jamaican bashment, always I wanted in please. So literally that's how I remember community. That's where I remember love, is within the North End, within Gottingen Street, and seeing everyone every so often. People have little freezy cups out. Someone's grandmother selling freezy cups out in her backyard.
That's why we cook
Exactly.
That's why Teo cooks for everybody.
I literally.
And I cook for Teo.
No, that is exactly why I cook
I'm
for
still dying
people.
for your jerk
And
chicken.
why I
Jerk
will
chicken.
look.
The
I
family's
will make you a
asking. I know my kids
seafood.
are asking.
You haven't cooked for me either, so Chessa, you better.
I will cook. I will cook if y'all want to buy and bring it over. I will cook.
It's the
But, like,
fellowship. It's the
yeah.
fellowship that
No,
brings
it's-
us back into it.
Exactly.
And
And understanding
so
that.
that we can have. I make sure that you eat. Nice
Yeah,
and
no,
healthy.
exactly.
Make
We
sure
make
I
sure
eat
that
nice and healthy. And
each other
my
eat.
door is open.
And-
you know that.
Yeah, it's
you
true.
know
I've been
that.
there.
You
I
know
think
that.
That's why if you look around the city, you see a lot of homeless white people, especially men, out on the street. But look around. Someone asked me, how come they don't see homeless black men out? And I said, because we pick them up and take them home.
Right? That's
Straight up.
That's somebody's
Straight up.
family.
No.
That's somebody's family.
And I think the main way of moving forward is remembering that we can do these things. We don't have to feel like, the other day I had to remind myself. I was like, I have to remind myself to be neighborly. Someone just moved in across the hall from me, and I literally just was like, let me go knock the door. Let me go say hi. There's no reason for me not to. And I think moving forward, we have to remind ourselves that these are people, and we have to get to know our people and also keep our people accountable. So
Yes.
moving forward, be nice to our folks, but also if someone's going to say some disrespectful stuff, you have to keep them accountable.
Yeah.
You know
And don't
what?
be afraid of screenshots when it comes to holding your account, when it comes to responsibility and holding your community and people in your community responsible for
And
their
I'm
check
words.
about
people.
that, but
They
I
know
also
how to
think
check
it's important to talk to people directly
Exactly.
and to do that kind of transformative justice work. And then if it needs to be shifting venues, needs to shift sites.
Yep.
So it needs to go from a personal conversation to a public conversation, a personal conversation, a community conversation to a public conversation, then that needs to happen, right?
Yeah,
There's
and
some,
we do.
there's
We
some
do,
really
especially
great,
with
there's some
social
really
media.
But
great.
to be honest, like if you wrong me, I'm blasting you for that. I'm not putting you online for that. Because you know what's gonna happen is other people then, other non-Black people are gonna get involved in the conversation and come for you. And then what have I done if I've hung you out to
Yeah.
dry? What if I've done if I say I'm about community, but then I put you in danger? That's why we also need to shift the conversation to honestly to cis Black folks and say like, our siblings are in danger. What are you gonna do? Because like
Right,
these
This
people,
is it.
like, you know what I mean? How are we calling them in? And I think that I'm lucky. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's okay. I just wanted to say one last thing
Yeah, go.
because I actually have a meeting at 1:30 because that is the life of the chair right now. So I need to like go off and do that. But the last thing I wanted to say is I think it's important for us as Black, queer, and trans folks, gender non-conforming folks, to be fully committed to disarming, defending, dismantling, and abolishing police and all systems of policing. So whether that's HRM, whether that's the RCMP, whether that's the military, all systems of policing. And I don't mean simply redistribute the budget and make them smaller. I absolutely mean dismantling and abolishing all systems of policing, RCMP, HRM, military. And until because there was no way to make that system less harmful for our lives.
And
That system
also
is
academia.
by definition is about harming our lives. And so I agree that we should stop posting the video lynchings online because people really it becomes
Really
a snuff film.
they
I think
do.
there's other ways
They
that we
theaterize
can
it.
talk about the way, and it's used as a way to kind of prove that violence happens because our voices aren't by others, our voices aren't considered authentic or reliable or objective by others. And so if we are really only speaking to each other, then we should not have to prove to one another that police kill us, because we should believe that. So therefore there is no space or place for that video. The only place you want to use that is if you're interested in using their legal system for their forms of justice. And that is not our forms of justice. And so to move forward, it's not actually about attempting to make the police systems better, because we understand that police systems cannot be better. And if we understand that, if we truly and fully understand that, then our energy would not be going into those continuing conversations that have been happening since the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, right? Like these are not new conversations, but they get to wear us out. And it's a way of dismantling the revolutionary and activist communities that are doing other kind of work.
Absolutely.
And so I would say that it's important for us to think about our own communities' accountabilities that does not require any form of state-sanctioned police or military. And I just wanted to say all Black Lives Matter, and that's why.
Cool.
Straight up.
And I'm here for it.
You know what I mean? Like,
thank
in
you
the
so
most
much for everything that you just said. I'm
Black-
inspired just from
The only thing
the
only thing I would like to bring up to that is when we're talking about dismantling police force and stuff like that, I'm all for that. But I also think we also need to keep an account of, remember those people, those Black people, Native people that have been within those systems. I'm ex-military, so I hear this about dismantling that there, but I think you also got to hold space for the people that had to live through that already, because what you're doing, hang on, I'm about to lose lights again. What you're doing is saying, you're kind of making us them, and we're not.
Yeah, no,
I was victimized in that. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
When I say
I'm saying to everybody,
disarm and abolish, it also means, in none of that does it mean that we are hanging out Black people and Indigenous people to dry. Not in every way, shape, or form.
No, I just want to bring that up to everybody else. So
Yeah, we understand how capitalist systems work. We understand how the military works to troll our communities as a way to bring us in and then harm us in different ways. It's another form of genocide and enslavement. And especially when they take our people to try and send them to kill other people who look like us. That's what I mean by dismantle, disarm, disfund the systems. And so those forms of anti-Black racism and anti-Indigenous racism and colonialism are also put an end to.
Absolutely.
If we want to talk about systems to work better on or work better on, let's talk about academia for people of color that are in academia.
Also for real, like in the blackest way, and in the most possibly disrespectful way, like fuck the police. You know what I mean? For real, for real, for real. For real. And that's not one individual police officer, right? Like people take that.
There should be more support for people who have had to navigate those systems and whatnot, because they either wanted the money or they wanted to.
Yeah, they wanted education, they wanted housing, they wanted whatever. And there's ways you can do that without putting those billions of dollars into those systems.
And that's right. Like I've got PTSD, thank you, Canadian Armed Forces, from it. So that's why I say when other people sometimes have to deal with this. So it wasn't because the statement said here, but it kind of boils down to when you're standing out and listening to it on the sidewalk and other people protesting, then it puts you on the other side. And it's like, hey, I have suffered more from this than you have. Yeah.
It is 1:15. I want to respect that you need to leave. And I want to thank everyone for being here with us. And I don't think that this is the last time we should convene in this capacity.
It better not be.
Last words, then please.
I have just this, and that is, again, we are not here to be tolerated. We are not here for your toleration. We are here. We have been here. We will always be here and queer. So you either get into it or you get behind us. Period.
And I have this to say: we have to bring all of us in. Like, don't be afraid of us. Don't be afraid of each other, and don't be afraid to reach out to each other and us. And you, sister, ma'am, please do add me, or however.
I will.
Please do, and you too, Michael.
My last word is just be unapologetic.
Yes.
Speak what you speak.
Don't worry.
And continue on with it.
Cool. Well, thank y'all for joining us. I love you all so much. I'm so happy to be in community with y'all. And have a radical Black ass day.
Can we start a podcast like this just monthly?
Literally, we should start a podcast. We should start a podcast.
Let's do that. I'm ready.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm waiting for
you
the
can
line.